to ye gates, and be lift up ye everlasting door, and the King of glory shall come in. Who is this King of glory? Of a strong and mighty, of a mighty in battle. Lift up your heads, O ye gates, even lift them up, ye everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. Who is this King of glory? Yahweh of hosts, he is the King of glory.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to Line by Line Bible Study. Oh, my computer's doing a little dance there. All right, so continuing in Psalm 40, verse 11. Remember last week, I've not refrained my lips from speaking your truth, O Lord. I've kept thy faithfulness and thy salvation, not to myself, but I've kept it and I've proclaimed it. I've not refrained my lips. We talked about how, the tongue should be tamed and controlled. But also, here we see that the tongue needs to be loosed. Things should be spoken of. And I don't know, it's not a question of eloquence. I've never met anyone who didn't have sufficient words just to tell people what God has done for them, or it is meant to them. It's like maybe, we're not all going to have the ability to, lay out theology in necessarily a systematic or orderly fashion even. And it's not even really essential. People have come to faith based on the simplest things, because the primary thing is the state of their heart at that moment. And it's like, I don't know anyone who was ever, I'm sure it exists, but someone who was just like battered with intellectual arguments into submission. It's good to know things because it makes us better able to give an answer for the reason of the hope that lies in us. If it needs to be a complicated answer, sometimes they aren't. I see I have a nearby listener. So, let's pick it up with verse 11. Withhold not thou thy tender mercies from me, O Lord. Let thy loving kindness and thy truth continually preserve me. For innumerable evils have compassed me about. My iniquities have taken hold upon me, so that I am not able to look up. They are more than the hairs of my head, and therefore my heart faileth me. Be pleased, O Lord, to deliver me, O Lord. Make haste to help me. Okay, before we go on to what, he wants to happen to the people who hate him, we'll go on to the thing here. So, I've declared your righteousness. I've declared your salvation, your faithfulness, loving kindness. Withhold not thy tender mercies from me. Let thy loving kindness and thy truth continually preserve me. And this is something we trust, and he just said your faithfulness. But it's not wrong to say it. To say, Lord, be merciful to me, even though I prefer, Lord, you've always been merciful to me. But he's saying that too. Saying, withhold not thy tender mercies. Rebuke me not in thy hot displeasure. But I suppose, there's multiple, like a lot of things, there's either, sometimes we get this binary trap where we think there's either just all mercy or all wrath. There's different levels of mercy. It's just obviously sometimes. So there's like big mercy, which is important. Big mercy is stuff that keeps you alive, keeps you from having horrible circumstances. And tender mercy, to me, is like, I suppose. Well, what I'm saying is like there's also mercy. Just hey, things may not as severe. Basically, you have like against things that are just not as big a deal, but in the overall picture in our lives, they can stack up. A lot of times people don't have one big thing that's troubling them, but they have a bunch of little things, or maybe a bunch of small life events or life issues that are pestering at them, and maybe they need a different kind of mercy. Like, because it's like, yeah, I can bear all this. But maybe a little more mercy. And I'm not, that is, by the way, is not like some sort of delineation of what tender mercy indicates. It's just a adjective in front of mercy, just meaning, well, I didn't even look at the actual Hebrew, and I don't think it's essential to. But we'll peek. Let's see if it has any, because I'm just saying there's different kind of mercy. There's different necessity. Not that tender mercy. It's all one. Tender mercy is just one word. Compassion here. Loving kindness. Favor. Compassion and favor. Mercies. Well, that's why I say, like, there's a sense of something, you feel a difference between the idea of mercy and compassion in English. I mean, mercy is like, mercy, they're going to, don't destroy me. When I just look at my website, I realize there's just all these spelling errors right on the front page. That's funny. I just noticed. I'm like, I haven't fixed that in like a year. Yeah. Over a year, actually. Now I look at it. Last update was in April. I'm sorry, I gotta scratch my face. All right. I got crooked old glasses on. Okay, so back to... I never brought up the... that's all right. We don't need the definition. It's fine. We need God to be compassionate towards us. We want him to be compassionate towards us. Interesting that he puts truth in. Let thy loving kindness and thy truth continually preserve me. God's truth preserves us. How would that happen? I suppose by the fact of the truth. So much in this world is based on lies. Like the lies that come against you to destroy you. People might have lies against you. And God, and the truth belongs to the Lord. God's truth is truth. But also could refer to things like the law. Thy law is the truth, according to the Psalms. Psalm 119. Right. Yeah, thy law is the truth. Psalm 119. And so, the law, obviously, and the Word of God preserves us also by, when we live by it, we have an expectation of life. If we, excuse me. It's very obvious if you don't follow the law of God. If you just think you can go kill, then you're going to find yourself suddenly maybe deprived of your own life. If we don't live by the edicts of God, we can find ourselves in trouble with God and man. So the truth preserves us also in that sense, in that it's protective, because it gives us the wisdom to have the words which lead to life and preservation of life. For innumerable evils have compassed me about, my iniquities have taken hold on me, so that I'm not able to look up. So that's the thing, is like, at the same time you have innumerable evils, and then iniquities of your own. This whole verse here it's rough. I know what this feels like. You have, in your life, all these troubles, evils, things that, evil is that which disrupts and breaks up that which is good. Like there's natural evil, like a earthquake, hurricane, a volcano. When it comes and an evil thing has befallen you. If a tower falls, like the Tower of Siloam in the book of, I think this is Luke, whatever. It's in the Gospels. There are certain evils that befell men. There can be evil come upon us from men. Evil is not the same as wicked. Wicked is like some sort of moral evil, but not like it is moral evil, but there just generic evil is all kinds of things, and not really a thing itself. It's not really a thing. It's the taking of things. It's the removal of positive aspects of life and replacing it with negative, or things that be at least subjectively negative, right? And so you're surrounded by evils, and at the same time having wicked things in iniquity. And what was I want to know which word they're using for iniquity, just because if I'm going to use it, there we go. Sacrifice and offering, thou wouldest not. Loving kindness and there we go, iniquities. Avon. Guilt, iniquity. It's guilt, and it can be punishment also. So yeah, it's guilt of sin that this iniquity means. And so, I'm guilty. In the midst of trouble, I'm guilty. And that can be absolutely devastating, because it makes you feel like, well, my iniquities have hold on me and evils are surrounding me. It's like I can't look up. Like the idea of the inability to raise the head. The idea of raising the head in the scriptures comes about, every once in a while. Like just from Genesis, you may remember Joseph when he talked to the baker and the butler. I think those were their two jobs, the baker and the butler, at least in the King James. So when he tells each of them the meaning of their dream, he tells them both that the Pharaoh is going to lift up their head and take them out of prison, and the other guy, he's going to lift up your head off of your body. And he's going to behead you. So, the lifting up of the head is a metaphor for change of fortunes for the better. Or looking up for optimism. Like, look up, for your redemption draweth nigh. And when your head is continually cast down, you can't lift up your eyes to look at people or God or anything, to lift it, but rather down, down, down. And it's interesting because that's also, down is where we go, into the grave. It's a kind of a metaphor for looking into the open mouth of the grave and death. I'm looking down. I don't have an upward trajectory. I've got a downward trajectory. I feel the evils around me, my own iniquities taking hold of me, and they are more than the hair of my head. Between the innumerable evils and the iniquities, obviously he's being somewhat, hyperbolic about the number of iniquities, but it's like, it's also being, saying that a little exaggeratedly, it doesn't matter, because it's like, in a certain sense, it's true. It's like, it's so much. It's might as well be innumerable. You know what I mean? And and when you have this kind of thing, it's like you feel like like my sin is bringing this on me sometimes. And so he's like, earlier he's talking about how your law is in my heart, sacrifice and offering, and he's talking about all your works, right? And how you brought me out of the horrible pit, establish my goings, all these things. talks about the Lord's attributes, who he respects, who he, the things, all the good he's done for us. And then, coming down to the brass tacks where it's like, God could withhold compassion from me and I'm in trouble. Because though I have not kept silence about God and I have loved his ways and offered myself to him and to do his will, the law written in my heart, preaching righteousness. In the same context, it's like my iniquities have taken hold of me. Because it's like that can happen. It ought not be. We think in Christ, we should be delivered from sin and iniquity. But, I don't know. I don't know. Everybody I ever met who made claims like that, yeah, it didn't turn out to be true. I think you almost like to be able to... Here's the thing. Someone told me when I first got interested in, holiness, they call it the holiness movement. And when I first got interested in that line of thinking, like we ought to, like there's a significant amount of work on virtue that ought to be happening in each of us as Christians. And we can't just be like the world. We're supposed to put off the former conversation, et cetera, et cetera. And like I've said, in many ways, I've certainly done that. I'm not, when I turned to Christ, I turned away from a life that was on a totally different trajectory, totally changed. And so, I love when my computer decides it's time to start. They don't consider, you're in the middle of a live stream. You don't want us to start updating things, do you? Yeah, it's like, gee. Of course, they're not thinking. It's just a machine. But here's the thing is like, we all still struggle, except for those of us who are maybe near the end of our walk. I don't know anyone personally, I mean, not on an intimate level, but I have known people who've been long time Christians, and it's like as they get to it's like they do have fewer, it's like the temptations are also kind of fewer. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about that. I'm only 46, but there's something very distressing, though, when you're going through troubles and having iniquity, your own guilt. Because it always gives you the thought that perhaps this is coming on me as a punishment from God. And that's debilitating. Because it's like then you start thinking that everything that come upon, all the bad things that are happening that seem to be bad, the unpleasant. Because the Lord, when it comes to us, there are things that seem to be pleasant, but they're not there to be punishments to separate us from God. Because nothing can separate us from the love of God, which is in Christ Jesus towards us. Those who are called according to his purpose. All things are working together for good. Though you may be compassed about with evils. There's a scripture where it's, some people say falsely, let us do evil that good may come. I'm not done. There's such a thing as doing evil, which is human sin because it's man bringing about and taking away things he doesn't have rights to take away. Like the goodness that God has given someone else. Like someone's life. Because I'll say we don't have a right to life, but by the same token, we have a right to kill. It's not given to us. It's like we that which God gave to some other man, I have not the right to take. But our iniquities will make us feel like things that are maybe subjectively difficult to bear are actually punishments from God. And it can cause us to feel like my heart fails me. I'm losing all heart. I'm losing the idea of your heart failing you is it's sort of a metaphor for loss of courage, isn't it? Without heart, courage, or, and of course, just general good feeling about life and moving forward. Because as the evil, because some of the iniquities also, as people have experienced in life, some of our iniquities, in the midst of the evil we suffer, it's not like I can just stop. Sometimes, there are things that I wanted to stop, but because of the troubles that I was in the midst of, it was almost impossible. Because it was so embroiled. You get so trapped. You can get trapped in a cycle of the evils that you're suffering have to do with your iniquity also. And it's like, we always got to remember that just because certain circumstances don't make us happy doesn't mean it's a punishment from God. It could be chastisement. You know what I mean? But do not chasten me in thy hot displeasure. There's a limit. I want, if I'm going to suffer, I want it to do good. When if I go work out in the weight room, it's going to be hard work. It's going to hurt perhaps. Obviously, I don't want to say hurt, but I'm going to say I'm going to get tired. I'm going to get wore out because when you work out, it shouldn't hurt. If it hurts, you should stop doing what you're doing and see why it hurts. But you might get sore afterwards, which is different. Just want to make sure I just made a distinguish there. It's obviously hurt. Feel pain. You may feel pain that is part of the necessity of getting stronger. And that is good. But there's also a pain that is not good, a pain that just debilitates and drags you down and can cause you to feel abandoned by God. Especially and then you can blame yourself because you're like, oh, look at my iniquities. Yeah, let me put it this way, trust the Lord. You're always going to have something you can look at. Even if you're not, because what will happen is, even if you have maybe overcome all the problems you ever knew in your life that you had, let's say you overcome all the sins that you've ever thought about or known, and then evil comes upon you. I thought the bug was crawling me. It's just a little hole in my hand. Then an evil comes upon you, and what? Now all of a sudden you think, well, it's God's punishment. So maybe I've done something. This is what the argument they brought to Job, because Job had done nothing worthy of... he knew that the level of evil that was falling on him couldn't have anything to do with him sinning. It couldn't have. He'd never done anything that worthy of such things. And especially considering that he had followed, the law of God. You know what I mean? Not that he was perfect in the sense of he was reckoned that way. He made offerings for his children and stuff. So, and he made offerings for himself to God. He had reconciled to God in the way that God had provided at the time, and God accepted in his mercy those substitutes, which were only shadows of what was to come concerning Christ. So he was perfect in, judicially, reckoned as perfect. And he wouldn't know that for sure himself, but he would know that he hadn't done anything worthy of these kind of punishments in terms of God. That, as his friends say, the Lord, he punishes the wicked, and he comes down on them hard, and you must have done something, because they measured the bad things that happened to Job in terms of, well, it's so bad, you must have done something to be worthy of it. And in the book of Job, it's funny because some people don't like the book of Job, or atheists saying this terrible book. It's like, this book, they would want to get rid of the book that addresses the idea of the problem of evil. You know what I mean? Why do bad things happen to good people? That's the point of Job. Why do bad things happen to good people? And they don't get it. And it shows you kind of the shallowness of people's intellectual approach to the Bible. Most people who don't believe, like unbelievers who approach the Bible, are approaching with purely a willful desire to misunderstand. And it's fun. And when I see that, honestly, it makes me feel empowered against them. I'm like, your intellectual claims are not valid in this context, because You're not using your intellect. You're just wantonly misunderstanding things. You know what I mean? When you don't even try, I mean, you don't have to understand the Bible, but don't pretend, don't come and tell me your criticisms when you have wantonly disregarded context and meaning. And that's what they do. Be pleased, O Lord, to deliver me. I'm going to sip of coffee. I'm starting to feel that I've gotten to 20. I just looked at the time. It's funny. It always seems that halfway through, I look at the time. I was considering cutting this study in half, making it shorter. Maybe, some people like long studies. I certainly have no problem making them. And there'll be another, it's not like there's going to be another half hour tomorrow. There's going to be, there will be, or probably. But there wasn't a half hour yesterday, so now there's an hour today. I don't know. I have no plans of changing it right now, so. Because a lot of times, it takes me the first half hour just to get warmed up. Can't predict it sometimes. Be pleased, O Lord, to deliver me. O Lord, make haste to help me. We want God to be pleased to help in the midst of trouble. I think I say that a lot. We want God, we want this, we want that. In the Psalms, you're left with that. You have to, it's, when studying the Psalm, that's why we're going to break them up. There's a lot of Psalms, and there's a particular flavor to them, of course. Be pleased to deliver me. We believe these things are already accomplished facts. But still, putting these thoughts in the mind. We see God. I don't want him to just be doing it like, all right, I'll save you, or fine, Oh, sorry. Oh, I want him to have pleasure. I mean, like, it delights me to save you. It delights me, to turn you from your iniquities. It delights me. I hasten. I don't want God to be like, oh gosh, are you on? It's an anthropomorphism, in a sense, because the idea of God being grudgingly helping or something like that is kind of silly. But, like I've talked about many times, I think sometimes people have a tendency to look at God as this sort of system. Like I can, the same mentality that goes into like, I'll do a deathbed conversion and get saved. Like just in case. The mentality that thinks I can just game it. Like it's like high school or something. I get 3 tardies and before I got to get a detention. Or 5. It was 5 tardies and 3 unexcused absences. I knew that because after I had 4 tardies, I used up the 3 unexcused absences, which means show it. Tardies when you're a little late. Unexcused absence is when you're like, you miss half the class. So I would just come in extra late in order so it wouldn't be a tardy. That was gaming the system. That means I effectively had, before I got a detention, I could be late 6 times. And the 7th late one, I'd be kind of stuck because 3 unexcused absences is also detention. And then the 5th tardy. So I could get 2 detentions in a row, which I eventually did get because I couldn't get to class on time. So, I want... so the idea of like God being sort of like mechanical and heartless and machine-like in his action is kind of scary. Like when you think of God as just like this force or impersonal, uncaring, unaware, like kind of like, because here's the thing, he very well could be. He stands on the circle of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof are like grasshoppers. To God, we are to God like grasshoppers. What is man that thou takest account of him? What is man that thou art mindful of him? And the Son of Man that thou visitest him? What is man? The other day I was walking and I saw a strangely shaped thing on the ground. It was a little toad and it was crushed. Someone had inadvertently stepped on it in the night, you know? And that happens a lot around here because I have a lot of toads on my property. You know, when I first moved here, I thought, well, whatever. But we got a lot of toads. A lot of toads. You can't hardly walk without tripping over them. And, it's not because anyone hated the toad. We would have gladly just let it go. But through lack of attention, we just stepped on it. Somebody did. You know? Every once in a while in the summertime, I'll find a toad I drove over in my driveway. Because they're slow and they're harmless. They're actually quite beneficial, right? Toads do great work, you know? They do. They eat bugs all the time. They eat nothing. They sit there and gobble up bugs. You know, they're great. Absolutely great. Harmless. You know, complete. They don't do any damage to your, you know what I mean? Like they don't like, burrow in your garden or, you know what I mean? And they do. They hang out in the garden, but they're great there. They just sit under the tomato and eat the bugs as they come by. I like the toads. Right? But we don't want God to just step on us like some toad. Oh, I didn't notice you there. Sorry. I want God to take note of me and to care. To be pleased to, let me deliver. I mean, like I said, I would be pleased to deliver the toad, but I got to notice. But there's that feeling like of God, like if you don't think of it, if you don't have a relationship with God, if you don't talk to him and listen to his word and stuff, God can be very daunting. And it can feel like, he's so big. It's like, how could he take notice of me? If, when you start wrapping your mind around this God. And but then when you think of him as personal, as someone who would care to make haste to help, to be like that he can be like that. He has tender mercy and compassion towards us to deliver us. And can be more than mechanical, but truly attentive to what we need. We put your trust in the Lord. It's like the difficult things of life, he will help us sort out and give us the victory over. But we got to trust in him. Let them be ashamed and confounded together, verse 14, that seek after my soul to destroy it. Let them be driven backward and put to shame that wish me evil. Let them be desolate for a reward of their shame that say unto me, aha, aha. Aha, aha. I don't know which one I mean. There's a lot of, I don't know which inflection. It could be like, maybe it's that one. I don't know which one. I'm not sure which one. Man, this is the part of the psalm that, where he's saying, hey, drive them backward, put them to shame, let them be desolate for a reward for what they've said to me. There's the cursing. And Jesus said, bless and curse not. But in the right context, so I can let me formulate. God, Lord, I know that I'm your servant. I have not withholden my voice from the great congregation. I have not hidden your word in my heart. Your word is in my heart, though, and I have offered you my body and my life, O Lord. And so I know that these people who are coming against me are coming against your anointed. And therefore, they are in exceedingly great danger. Touch not mine anointed, and do my prophets no harm. So God, let them be ashamed and confounded that want to destroy my soul. Let them be driven backward and put to shame, lest a worse fate befall them, and they do evil to me and bring a greater evil on themselves. You know what I mean? So in a sense, it is better for them, because he isn't saying, hey God, after they kill me, would you make them suffer? Maybe slaughter their families in front of their faces or something. You know what I'm saying? Like that's like revenge. It's just strictly like let evil fall on them for evil's sake as a just punishment for their sins. And that can also be true. But there's a sense in which the chastisement of the Lord, look at the Apostle Paul on the road to Damascus when Jesus appeared. There's a sense in which, let them be struck blind and struck down that seek after my life. You know what I mean? Paul was in pursuit of Christians, breathing out threatenings and slaughter. He had that mindset. I will destroy their souls. And again, interesting. This isn't, there's no way I can't mention this. Look at that. My soul to destroy it. And so the question, of course, is, well, Paul, how do you fit that? Don't you say that, Matthew 10:28, when Jesus says, fear not them that kill the body and afterwards can do no more, but fear rather him that can destroy both soul and body. Look at this. Here we have in the Psalms, it talks about the soul being destroyed. And it's something that men can do. So, it has some other meaning. And of course, things have different meanings. There's a metaphorical idea of destruction. We're going to destroy his life, destroy his career. But we don't mean to kill or to annihilate. Fine. But in the context in which Jesus said it, it's obvious what he means, because it means more than death. Fear not them that can kill the body, and afterward there's no more they can do, but fear rather him that can destroy your soul. Here, obviously, he's talking about the destruction of the soul in terms of death, because that is all they can do. And talking about destroying someone's soul is a term for death. And that is actually how I would turn this. It's like, look at, here we have an example of the idea of destroy soul. Obviously, that when they seek after his soul to destroy it and wish him evil, I want to put this into my, I want to use this for my, something I'm writing. There we go. Put this right here. Come on, Paul. Let's paste it right into the document. I forgot. I gotta go back to that. Okay, there we go. And I lost my place. Okay. So, anyway, so it's not any kind of refutation of the idea of the final punishment being death, like the second death being a real death, being a total loss of awareness, consciousness, and essentially no longer existing as a conscious entity in the world, in God's world, meaning in the world of conscious existence that we inhabit with God. And that's what, to me, that's what death is. It's like the state you existed in before you were born, which was non-experiential, the fate of the end. The destruction of the soul is when you come to the end of all experience, because the soul is the essence of who the person is. And that, there's somewhat here this is a bit hyperbolic to speak of death as the destruction of the soul, because Jesus divided it. But it does mean that the destruction of the soul is seen as death. I mean, his soul would be destroyed in this world. And of course, by, whatever, in whatever way that men have access to hurt our lives, but that was, that we should be cut off from among the living is what it it means, and so that we would no longer have a life in this world. Driven backwards and put to shame. Let them be desolate for a reward of their shame that say to me, aha, aha. It's the idea that aha, aha, you get the feeling it means it's kind of like, aha, I've got you in my power now. We have you where we want you now. We are going to get you. That's what that implies to me. Let all those that seek thee, rejoice and be glad in thee. Let such as love thy salvation say continually, the Lord be magnified. So those who seek God, let them rejoice and be glad. And that is, when we seek, I find that there's times when I get down and stuff, is that seeking the Lord always helps. Is that when I seek God, when I speak to the Lord in the midst of my troubles, it always helps me turn the corner. It helps me turn the corner and pick myself up, get my face off the ground, and continue to move forward in life, and to continue to try to fulfill God's will in my life. Let such as love thy salvation say continually. It's weird. It's funny because, you think, what a funny thing to say. Who wouldn't love salvation? To be, doesn't everybody love it when the hero comes and saves the day? And salvation, that's what salvation essentially is. It's like the moment of getting saved from whatever. Because salvation is, obviously there's the big picture salvation, like salvation from the lake of fire, for salvation from the second death, and from the state of death by the resurrection. That's an important kind of salvation. But there's also like the minor salvation, the little times when God preserves us and saves us. And really, he's in an act of preserving and saving us continually. But we don't always see it. But we can rejoice in it continually. Like I've said on a number of occasions, there's times when maybe I'm intending to go a certain way, and all these things get in my way and block me, right? And I'm late or something, and I felt like it was against my control. And I've learned to chill out about that. I used to get all upset and irritated and agitated. But I realized it's like, maybe God just prevented me from getting into an accident. And my appointment with destiny is being shifted by these things, these circumstances. That's it. Everything is getting changed, but as part of the overall plan, I can't leave right now. Other things got to get in the way for things to turn out the way they're supposed to turn out. So it happens that way. So I learned to be patient and realize that the ways of God, God's way of salvation, is not necessarily what I expect. It's not necessarily what I expect it to be. I want it to be a certain way. I want it to work out, in a way that just makes sense to me. That I can see the end from the beginning. I want to see my salvation coming from a mile away. Like you're in trouble. You want to see the Lord. You want to be like, I see how the Lord's going to deliver me out of this. You don't want to be like, but sometimes, a lot more times, it's like what we find is the Lord's salvation comes from a surprising direction. God's deliverance is not always from where we expect. That's why, as I was saying that about all those things that intervene, that maybe make me late or something, I think of Balaam's ass, right? Balaam's ass. Balaam was coming along. He'd been commissioned by the king of Moab, I believe, or Ammon, one of the other, I think it was Moab. Yeah. Sorry. Balaam, who taught Balak to cast a stumbling block. Well, he was on his way He'd been commissioned to curse the children of Israel. He was a hired prophet, and he was coming, and his ass kept going astray out of the path. He wouldn't go through this path where there happened to be an angel standing to slay him. There was something there waiting to kill him. An angel. A messenger from God. God's messengers take all kinds of forms, A messenger from God was waiting to slay him. And the ass wouldn't go. And Balaam got so angry at the ass, he started beating it. And it was so grievous that God gave the ass the ability to speak and revealed to Balaam that the angel was there waiting to slay him and saying, why have you beat? I forgot. I got to go back and read that. I got to go finish my study in Genesis sometime because I don't remember what the ass says exactly, except to basically tell him like, hey, have I ever been, I've served you well, haven't I? Why are you beating me? Because you are being stubborn and you're not going where I want you to go. And then the angels revealed. The dumbass spoke. And so it's an example of how things are not always what they seem. We may be frustrated in our moment, but it may be that very frustration is what's saving us. And what it means to love God's salvation sometimes means loving frustration, loving all the vicissitudes of life, because all of those things are that which make up the process by which you ultimately inherit God's kingdom. It's like, I put my faith in Jesus. My entire life at this point is the salvation of God. So there really isn't a moment of this I shouldn't love. Now, this is theoretically true. This is theoretically true, but it's not necessarily my experience. And by any means, and I'm saying that somewhat facetiously, it's definitely not my experience. I don't love God's salvation enough, apparently, because sometimes there are moments where I thought I hated my life. You know what I mean? There are moments in my life where I thought I hate my life. I thought it, and mostly because of certain parts of the circumstances. It's like usually some difficulty beyond my control. I love my family and all that, but it's just like there are other things in life besides home and family. There's work and, and other things like that, career, decisions you make that put you on a certain path. It's like, did I make the right decision? Am I doing the right, it's hard sometimes to love the path that you're on. But if we can learn to love God's work in our life for what it is, what it is it's God's work. And so, did I want it to be boring? What kind of adventure did I suppose I was going to have? You know what I mean? Like, what do we crave? What do I crave? I don't think I crave adventure, though. But maybe I did when I was young. And maybe future Paul is suffering for the vanity of youthful Paul. I don't know. This grand adventure. I think if it was boring, it'd be interesting because I would be curious to see. When I was young, I got bored a lot. I hated being bored. Hated it. I haven't been bored in decades. Bored. And the word doesn't even seem like it makes any sense. Like what? How did I get that feeling? Boring. I remember when I was a kid being. I guess it's just because I didn't have enough. I guess the things I wanted to do. It was basically because the things I wanted to do weren't available, and the things I had to do were distasteful. I didn't want to do them. Or I avoided them. I don't know. What was it? No, it would be like summer days with no one to call or do anything. I mean, so it's like not even school. I'm just bored because there's just nothing to do. Boy, you know, I long. I told my wife I'd love to be bored again once, at least once. Remember what it feels like. Maybe I'd hate it though. You know. Maybe I should. Well, like I said, you know, we should just rejoice in whatever circumstances we're in, if possible. You know, I look at the New Testament, you know, see people thrown into prison and they're singing, you know. And I've run into that. You know, I had a couple weeks ago. Did I mention it? I don't remember if I mentioned this lately, but I had like an incident happen where, you know, a bunch of bad stuff was happening, and then I got a flat tire, and that just kind of made me laugh. Because it was raining, so I had to change a flat tire in the rain. You know, and I was, you know, was not, you know, I guess that's what, you know, at that moment I took on the adventure of life and smiled at it because I was like, what, you know, and even in the process of doing that, I had even more things come up, you know, like I'd put the groceries on top of the spare tire and stuff, so I had to move all that again. You know, it was full of groceries, so it was like this, and raining, and I'm working in that, and you know, but it was so bad. It wasn't that bad. That's the thing. It wasn't that bad. It was just I'm just changing a tire. Some people do this professionally. What's it to me? And I'm in the rain. Well, you know, I could be in the snow. Ooh, you know. If I was in the snow, I'd be wishing I was in the rain. Though sometimes the snow is, you know, at least it's dry if it stays frozen, right? The Lord be magnified. Let God be magnified. God, you know, you know what that means? You know, obviously magnified means let him be great in our sight, like a magnifying glass. You know, I have a magnifying glass right here. It makes things bigger. Let's see. I'm having trouble here. Up a little. There. Makes things bigger. Makes things bigger. How could God be bigger than he is? Well, I mean subjectively. Meaning in our experience. From our point of view, let him be magnified. Or let me make him magnified. You know, and we magnify things to get a closer look at them, but also, you know, to take in the full measure. You know what I mean? Like, when you magnify, you know, you ever see a magnified something that's really small, and like you see, wow, you know, there's so much more to this tiny little thing. You know, there's the aspect of enlarging, but also the aspect of getting closer. When something's magnified, it's simultaneously at least closer to our understanding. Yeah, I mean, it becomes closer to our perceptions. Maybe not physically closer or in any sense like that, but you know what I mean? It opens things up. And so when God is magnified, you know, we see more of him. We learn more of him. That, you know, studying the Bible is magnification of the Lord. We're putting it under a magnifying glass and trying to learn more. But I am poor and needy, yet the Lord thinketh upon me. Thou art my help and my deliverer. Make no tarrying, O my God. Now, I am poor and needy, yet the Lord thinketh. What it means is like, you know, most of the time the poor just don't matter to people. You know, I mean, we talk about, you know, poverty and helping people that are poor, and sure, that gets done, and people that are poor, you know, I think I've said it many times, it's like, in America, we do a good job of helping our poor for the most part, compared to other countries, and it's just like, I don't know, the continual, could we do more? It's like, you know, I don't know. I'm always torn because it's like, as someone who is not well off, you know, but one of the things I know is that because of the way the world is constructed, it's like there's a lot of disincentives, like to, you know, to push yourself above poverty. there's a lot of disincentives because people get dependent. But I don't want to go into that aspect of it. What I want to say is like you could think like, I'm so small and insignificant. Let God be magnified, but I am small and insignificant. I am poor and needy. Which is a metaphor for the small and insignificant. Even though David was a king, this psalm is not written as a king. You can tell. Maybe he was a king when he wrote it, but it might have been written from an earlier time in his life, as far as memories. Because, he brought me out of a horrible pit. It's not a lot of king here. You know what I mean? Especially because he says, I am poor and needy. There was a time in David's life when he was totally destitute. He lived in a cave, because he'd been cast out and the king wanted to kill him. It was a significant portion of his life. Like you think God pays attention to the president and to the king and to the emperor, right? But to the poor and needy. What God does, yet the Lord thinketh upon me. Your thoughts to usward, Also, when you say I'm poor and needy, it's also saying, what do I have to offer God? You know what I mean? The king, kings have converted whole countries, which is a weird thing, The way Europe became Christian is and it explains why long term, it doesn't have like a permanent hold on the whole population, because the whole population can never really just become Christian because a king says so. But that happened in places where the king would say, okay, and now we're all Christians. And they realized that a lot of these things is like, if you couldn't get the individuals, they'd only come if the king came. So there's things kings can do. Kings are powerful in the world. And not that it matters to God, but one might think it matters. God is not a respecter of persons, right? He's not honor the great above the small, as far as because men regard them as great, though he has his own idea of what great and small are. But even in the things of God, I might not have much to offer. I can only offer myself, and that's not much. Yet God still thinks upon me. He still takes care for me. Behold the fowls of the air, they sow not, neither do they reap, nor gather into the barns. Yet your heavenly Father feedeth them. Are not ye much better than they? Something Jesus taught. Matthew 6. You are my help and my deliverer. Make no tarrying, Lord. Lord, don't wait. Don't tarry. Don't delay. Because you're the one who's going to deliver me. So, anyway, so that's Psalm 40. We got 41, which is brief. We'll finish it in one or two studies, I'm fairly certain. And then we will take a break from Psalms. And we will do probably a short New Testament book. And maybe a short Old Testament book, and then go back to the Psalms. Or maybe a medium book. I don't know. I'm not sure right now. So, anyways, we're going to wrap it up right there. We're going to say that's it. We're going to say see you tomorrow. Thanks for joining me in this study. I look forward to being back again tomorrow.
Lift up your heads, O ye gates, and be lifted up, ye everlasting door, and the King of glory shall come in.